Hello, Hockey Hysterics. Now, I know it's been a while since I made the last video, but I've had a lot of things happen. I got accepted into school. I'm still working full time. My niece has just come back into town and she's a little tiny little thing, so I'm very happy to have her here. And I just haven't been able to really get focused in on a video and give it my best shot. Now, with the whole video business, I am still relatively new to it. I don't know what people necessarily like. I don't know what the mainstream is. I just like watching people on YouTube, especially talking about sports. And I like generating an opinion for myself. The great thing about this is that I can generate an opinion and it's not neither right or wrong. It's just an opinion. Sometimes my opinions will turn out for the best and sometimes they will fall flat on their face. But you know, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. It just generates more opinions from those opinions. So I thought around the holidays, since I know I'm going to be busy, I'm going to try jam in a video and try to actually focus on it with something that I like doing. Grading NHL teams. I'm going to focus on Canadian teams this time. See which ones have generated an A+ to an F. F obviously being the worst. Now there might be some teams on this list that you'd be like, oh, why are they not rated so high? Or why are they rated too high? But you know what? It's just the way I see them in the league right now. And it is what it is. So let's get to it. So right off the bat, I might as well start with my team, Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Toronto's a funny team because they're doing really well in the standings right now, but I have not been impressed with the consistency that they've played with. Either their goaltending's really good and their offense is awful, or their offense is really good and their goaltending's awful. There's no consistency with the two departments. But I think when they actually start to perform in all areas, they're going to be one of the most lethal teams on the ice. They just have to get to that stage first, though. So in all that, I think that the Toronto Maple Leafs get a B. They haven't been outstanding this year, but they haven't been pathetic either. They're still relatively good in the standings, and they can actually generate more offense and more pressure, especially with Matthews coming back into the lineup. Now let's go off to my rival, and this is not a biasness or anything. I try to keep it as least biased as possible, which is a very difficult challenge for me because I like to just rant on my rivals. But let's be honest here, Montreal deserves a D. Why? Because without Price, we all know that Montreal is lacking a huge structure support. And we've seen them without Price this year not be able to cope with losing him. They haven't been able to score, and their other goaltenders haven't been able to hold down the fort in his absence. But now that Price is actually back and kind of healed, it seems, they have been doing their increase in the standings, winning more and more games and dominating the play. Pacioretty has to get back on his stride, but when he does, he is one of the most lethal players on the ice. He has a big frame and he can shoot the puck. Pretty good thing to have on your team. Gallagher is still a pest on the team who, you know what, they need someone like that on the team. My major concern with the team, though, right now would be Shea Weber. He's getting injured, and you just traded a huge prospect in Subban to another team with now you have a huge contract to take care of who's injured. So I don't think that's an awful rating. I think that can increase during the year when they get back into their stride and get back onto their role. But right now, seeing as they're still out of a playoff spot and still like fighting for a tough wild card spot right now, it's really hard to give them something better than a D. Moving on from them to another team in the Atlantic Division, we got the Ottawa Senators. Now, this team has really disappointed me this year because they went off a huge momentum burst in the playoffs, one goal away from going to the Stanley Cup final, to an absolute disaster. Craig Anderson and Mike Condon haven't been able to generate the save percentage as they would want to, as they did last year, and no one's really scoring. Hoffman has dried up, Bobby Ryan has injured his hand, and he's on and off. Carlson hasn't scored. He's not getting his points. And they are really missing some defensive defensemen in their team. They lost Mark Mathot, and they haven't had anyone actually step in and do that role. It has gotten so bad that at the beginning of the year, we wouldn't have even thought about trading Carlson. But now that's been all the talk. His contract's coming up, and how are they going to afford him with the $7 million to Phaneuf as well? We wouldn't have even thought about that at the beginning of this year. And with the owner piping up as he usually does at the wrong times, this team has just turned in on themselves and are exploding from the inside. So I very generously give this team an F right now. They haven't been able to do anything well. They're out of a playoff spot, and they need a huge turnaround from this point on to actually make a chance to the actual wild card spot. I'm not even thinking the top 3. So let's go to the western side of the league. Let's start with Calgary. Calgary is a hot and cold team. They either have a dominant performance or they just lackluster. Roughly the beginning of the year, they got Jaromir Jagr, who I thought would be a huge aspect of this team with a veteran presence for Gaudreau, for Monahan, for Bennett, for Tkachuk. All those young guns, I thought he would actually be a huge puzzle piece to help this team, to even morph those players. But unfortunately, he's been up in the press box injured more than he's been on the ice this year. That's really sad because I love Jagr. I love what he brings to the team. I love his dynamic presence, his personality. It's a great thing for the team to have. I just haven't been able to see his actual performance on the ice because he is always injured. So that's a huge downfall for the team. And they're kind of going into back and forth fight for a playoff spot. They're really close, then they're further away. And I know it's beginning of the year still, but you have to generate a winning streak, a winning habit to actually make it, especially in the Western Conference. Maybe not so much generously. I give this team a C-. I was thinking about a C, but just with their downward spiral and just Tkachuk acting the way he has been with the little cheap shots and not actually benefiting his team, but getting suspended instead, it doesn't generate a higher mark than that, I don't think. So let's go down to another team who I thought had a great start of the year, but has kind of dropped off like I predicted. Let's go to the Vancouver Canucks. I give this team about a C. The reason why I give this team a C and not a C- is because I thought at the beginning of the year that this team was too old and slow and they wouldn't have been able to actually generate anything. I thought they're going to be like a bottom Colorado team of last year type team. Of course, I was wrong at the beginning of the year, and they started off really well, but they've kind of come back down to earth and are still out of a playoff spot. So with the presence of that and with them kind of blowing my mind at the beginning of the year, I give this team a C. Still out of playoff spot, so you can't give them a B, but still definitely not a D because they have surprised me with their play, and Markstrom has actually been rather solid in the net. Now let's go to a team that has blown my mind away in a good way. Let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets. Patrick Laine, he kind of was on a slump, but he kind of generated more and more offense, and the team has shown that they don't need one player in Patrick Laine, but they're good as a whole. They're currently second in their division, and they are quite dominant. They have the structure, the big guys, the goal scorers, the speed, and they just generate a lot of defensive work as well. Paul Maurice has done a great job with this team and growing them. I wasn't expecting them to really do that well this year. Maybe a playoff spot, but still it would have been a dogfight. But this team has impressed me. That's why I'm giving them a solid A, because they have blown my mind away in a very positive way. I am actually very happy for that type of team. A Canadian relocation team that is sold out every single game and has actually been generating some revenue and some great fan presence. Now let's dive into the last team who realistically is last in every category. Let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers. Now this team is kind of like Winnipeg to me. They have impressed me in a certain way, but it is a huge negative downfall. Edmonton has blown me away with their lack of production this year. They haven't been able to grasp the winning streak, the winning atmosphere, the winning attitude to actually go to the next step. They made the playoffs last year, but look at them this year. They are pathetic. They can't score, defense is lacking, and they're getting beat to the play, the puck, losing board plays, losing wars in the corners, and they're just not generating enough offense to win. McDavid cannot do it himself, even though he made a huge deal in the summer with that huge contract, and Draisaitl's the same way. If there's anyone that should be kind of pointed out for, I'd say is Draisaitl. Huge contract, not really getting it done though. Kind of disappointing with the whole team, and I really hope that they do better. They're one of my favorite teams, but I give this team a degrading F. I thought they were a playoff team this year. I thought they were going to take it. This is going to be their year. They're just going to storm in, but nothing. It's really pathetic, really. So what do you guys think of this? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to smash that like button. All right, guys, have a great day.